Yakov here once again with my man Erik, who's got some experiences to share. I think you were talking about fucking meditation and reptilians and light beings or some shit like that, right?
Right. So that the reptilian things kind of come in later in my life, but that's like a totally different fucking. That's gonna be hours of talk until we get there. The
Cool.
the first story that kind of got me into like this weird. I don't even know what you want to call it, like metaphysics or thinking about like the world differently. Happened when I was about 15 or 16 years old. And is it okay if I just like fly off right
Oh
now?
hell yeah, man, go for it. Dig right
Okay.
in.
Okay. So I was about 15, something like that. I had really bad anger issues, like really bad anger issues. And I looked into meditation, and it was basically like I looked it up. It said, okay, you stare at a single point in your wall and you do, you focus on your breathing, and you eventually you'll get some kind of, I don't know, enlightenment or something. And so literally the first time I went to go meditate, I did wake up and I did smoke some marijuana, but at that time, that was a very normal thing for me at that time. And I get up and I think, okay, this is a perfect time to do some meditation. So I'm staring at a single point in my television, and I'm doing my breathing exercises, and I'm focusing more and more and more. And what I start to see happening around like my peripherals is this weird effect. Like you can see it if you look into a light bulb and then you look away really quickly. You'll see these splotches of colors,
Like
like
when you mash
reds
your
and
eyes
oranges and
too
stuff.
hard.
What's that?
Like when you press on your eyes too hard.
It's
It starts
sort of,
to
yeah. Do you know what
spots.
I'm talking about though? Like you
I think
could you
so,
could do
yeah.
it right now and see it. And so
Like the fractals
eventually,
forming on the peripherals.
yeah. See, at that point, I had no idea what fractals or any of that shit was. So,
I still don't.
um, yeah. So those colors start to envelop my entire vision. And I get to a point where I don't even have to focus anymore. Like I can look around my room. Everything is like this interchangeable splotchiness of reds and orange, and it's like they're moving around almost. And so I'm like, okay, this is kind of cool. And I focus more and more, and I go deeper and deeper. And I eventually get to a point where those colors have become so bright and so vivid, it's starting to throw me off a little bit. And I'm able to like look at wires that are hanging off my television and like dematerialize them. Like if I focus, I could see my wall as if the wire wasn't there. And then if I focused again, I could see a wire there. And I was like, okay, whatever. Like this is kind of neat. And I continue on, and out of nowhere, I didn't even realize it, but I looked down at my body. I'm sitting on like a couch. I look down at my legs. I'm not wearing any clothes.
I
No
see.
clothes at all. My entire body is made of like this. The best way, and I apologize, I've been drinking, so just give me a second here. Um, I look down at my legs, and I'm not wearing any clothes, and I'm made of like this deep blue light.
So what
It
did you
was like
say
if you
induced this?
my meditation, man.
I see. So
It's
you like
and
would you
like
call it disassociating?
no, it's more of a trance. I go
Gotcha.
into a trance more or less. Like now when I do it, I've been able to. I can within 30 or 40 seconds can get to this point where things are like you have like this vibrational sound rise through your body and stuff,
That's
right? But
that's weird that you say that because not many people do. Not many
I
people
know,
do.
and I know, and and yeah, and like, but that like the way that I experience my trance now is way different than my first experience. But I'll continue. So
Yeah.
looking down at my legs, I'm made of this glowing blue light, and I'm like, holy fuck! I put my hands up in front of myself. I have no fingernails or anything, and it's just like I'm made of like a blue light. It was insane. And at that point, I didn't know anything about fucking auras or you know what I mean. Like there was no
Yeah.
placebo put into my brain for that kind of experience to
So
happen.
you weren't shoving crystals up your ass or anything weird like
No,
that.
there's no Chris. No, there's definitely no crystals in my butt. So and I'm at that point where I'm literally able to turn my head and blink and like maintain that what do you call that, like that amount of focus and that amount of like retaining this experience. And I was like, okay, whatever. And I don't know if you guys have ever done hallucinogens or anything. Well, I know you guys have, but the listeners or
Yes, sir.
whatever, there's points where it's almost like there's like a break in your memory and all of a sudden something totally different's happening. That happened. And while I'm looking at my hands, they weren't, they didn't look like it, but my mind was projecting the image onto my hands. If it makes any sense. Like if you've ever done like a lot of mushrooms where you're looking at something and you know that's not what you're seeing, but it's like you're seeing it because
Yeah.
you're projecting it onto it, right? My hands are, they weren't reptilian and they weren't like snakes. They were somewhere in between, and they turned into like basically like crocodile heads, but they wouldn't be the way you think of like a Muppet. You know what I mean? They were facing inwards towards my wrist, like they were eating my wrist almost.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm at this point and I'm like, okay, this is totally fucked. And I'm starting to like freak out a little bit. And I'm looking at my television again, and those blossoming colors start to go purple and then black and then slowly focus down onto a pinpoint of light. And at this point, I didn't even realize it, but I'm hyperventilating. I'm going like I didn't even realize that was going on. And as soon as I clicked into that and all I could see was like a pinhole of light, I threw myself off my couch. Like I physically like threw myself off my couch, and I sat there for probably about 20 minutes, like in a fucking daze. And I was like, okay, I'm thirsty. I'm going to go get a glass of water. I get up, I open my door to go into the kitchen. As soon as I did, I got hit in the back of the fucking head with like a ton of bricks. And I felt, when I was laying there, like on my hands and knees, I felt everything you could ever feel. Like it was love, joy, anger, everything. And I cried. I don't know how long I cried for, but when I got up, I felt like a fucking $1 million. And my theory on that was that pinhole, that's like everything going dark was me, my body or my spirit getting ready to like eject out of myself. And when I threw myself off that couch, I was sitting there like in limbo. Like I wasn't really in myself and I really wasn't out of myself. And then that ton of bricks hit me in the back of the head was like my spirit re-entering my body. That's just my theory. Like I have no fucking clue.
Very
really,
much
so.
reminding me of the DMT experience.
Mm-hmm.
From the buzzing sound to
It starts in your feet, right? And then it goes and it comes up in your head, and then you lose sense of like
right in the center of the forehead. And that's the
Yeah.
moment that if you do a breakthrough dose of DMT, you get ejected out of your head into the goddamn stratosphere.
See, man, it's crazy because like I've heard, the only time I've heard people talk about shit that I've experienced remotely is when they've taken DMT.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like I've had fucking, like that was like the pivotal moment in my life. That experience fucking like made me go, whoa, there's more to shit than what I think, right? But I've had, I would say at least 7, like to that degree of just crazy bullshit happen through my meditation. Like I mentioned to you in the messages there, like interact or not, I didn't really interact with them, but they fully formed. It was like energy. It was an energy being, but they fucking looked like reptilians, man. And it kind of threw me off a bit, but I didn't feel afraid.
Like reptilians, the shape or like,
it was the head. They were they're made of energy, dude. So I can't really, and I can get into that story later if you want, but that's sure. Like I said, that's a different story. So,
sure.
So what's your theory on that whole thing?
I'll tell you, I think some people are more attuned to breaking through the veil, for lack of a better terminology. Some people
That's pretty much it, man.
Some people are able to do it very easily, and I always thought I was able to do it fairly easily because when I'd do a few hits of acid, I would find myself I'm basically doing breathing exercises, just like automatically meditating, and I didn't even realize I was doing it until I was being overcome by waves of emotion and just exaltation. So it makes me think like, what's the difference between like you and then some asshole walking the street who couldn't possibly fathom these things.
See, but that's the thing. Oh, sorry. Keep going.
No. It's just like what makes somebody receptive to the goddamn will of the universe? Like, I don't know.
You know what? Like in that, like I said, like I've learned a lot more as I got older and stuff, and I have theories and shit, dude. But like I think there's that one episode we were trying to explain like some extinct dinosaur or some shit, and you're like, oh man, like that was even fucking hard for me to even say. Like for me to even put into words my theories of what I believe how things work,
Yeah.
I can't even fucking do it.
Yeah.
It's so fucking. It doesn't even make sense to me. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. And
uh,
to me, the longer you go about that, the more you realize that being concise is like the best thing you can do. Like the fewer words, the better, because words aren't capturing the
yeah,
emotions and feelings,
yeah,
and you
yeah.
have to generate them in the other person through like poetry or metaphor or art, God knows
It's
what.
feeling, man. It's a feeling. That's what it
Exactly.
really is, right? Like,
Well, I always found
yeah.
the feeling of empathy coming over me, like empathy for the world,
See,
like to see
I,
how pathetic they are, to understand
so
that, and to love myself through that.
yeah, yeah, for sure, man. I'll say a very quick experience that I had that relates to that. So this was about halfway. So I'll break it down a little bit better. I got really sick about a year ago, and that's when I got back in my meditation because it actually helped with a lot of my symptoms. And so this is an experience that I had about, I don't know, 3 months after a lot of my really intense experiences that happened recently. I was laying in bed and I was meditating, and literally there was like this fucking. This looked a lot more clear and concise as like a reptilian energy thing.
Yeah.
I was meditating with my eyes closed. I got the like the
Yeah.
vibration rays or whatever you want to call it,
Yes,
and
sir.
I kind of I lost it though. I lost it because that's what happens. Like I can reach that vibration really quickly, but if I can't keep it, it's gone, and I won't get it again
Dude,
for a little bit.
it's the stupidest thing. I always used to liken it to playing Tony Hawk Pro Skater when you're grinding and you got to keep the thing in the middle, and if you
Yeah,
fall
yeah,
off to one
fucking,
side, it's over. You
yeah.
break it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
And nobody
So,
ever knew what the fuck I was talking about when I was saying it.
I mean, it's kind of like that, except that when you fall off, if you fall off in Pro Skater, you can get back on. This,
Yeah.
what I'm talking about, you fall off and then you gotta wait for like a bit. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's okay, but anyways, so I'm laying there, I get the vibration, and I go, okay, fuck, it didn't really work, but I was still in that like that middle limbo zone of the feeling. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
I think
And I
so.
open my eyes and I'm in a pitch black room, and there's this Schnalian looking reptoid energy motherfucker, and he disappears, but he's looking 90 degrees to me. So he's looking at like a wall, like I'm seeing the side view of him, and he looks at me and he points at me and he disappears. And I do it again. And while I'm laying there, I couldn't see a face, but I could see fragments of a face. And in my mind, I knew what it looked like, and I was afraid, right? It made me feel afraid. But as soon as I felt that, it was literally like it was like everything's okay, everything's fine. And like I remember having like this goofy smile on my face and shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So do you think so it wasn't trying to scare you? Is that what you got
No,
out of
and
that?
that's yeah, and like that's just the weird thing because the whole reptilian thing, everybody see or because of all the bullshit that's passed through like conspiracy circles or whatever, they're all looked at as like a, a benevolent force or malevolent or
Yeah.
whatever the fuck.
Yeah. It's weird because it reminds me of the experiences of one Kyle Odom, who ended up he shot up some pastor, and he was throwing like flash drives of like his manifesto over like the fence of the White House, trying to get them to Obama to tell him that the reptilians from Mars are trying to take over. But it all started with him in deep meditation, and an energy being came to him, and it scared the shit out of him. It did the same thing when like it was like, don't be afraid. But then after
You
that, he
say I'm
found
gonna be
himself
very fucking afraid.
he found himself being gang stalked by these reptiles and shit. And it's funny
Hey
because
man, don't fucking tell me that. Like that's the last thing I want to be hearing from you
well,
right now.
you're counter signaling this whole narrative. I like it. So, but it's funny because you had mentioned Muppet earlier, or maybe you said puppet. I'm not sure, but it just
Muppet as in like a hand puppet.
yeah,
Like that's what I meant as in like someone says my hands turned into fucking crocodile heads,
yeah.
they think like, oh, like it's a puppet. No, dude, it was facing inwards. Like they were
I
like eating my wrists.
I
You know
got
what I
you.
mean?
The reptilians would come to Kyle Odom and be like, Elmo runs the world. And like he took it as being it meant that it was them because their heads kind of looked like Muppets. So it's weird. It's weird how it all
So,
comes together like this.
no, I don't know if I like it, dude. That doesn't
One
sound like it's coming together very good.
one thing about Kyle Odom that I also think is interesting that I never mentioned yet on
Mhm.
stream. The initial K, Odom, And if you reverse Odom, you have Moto. So like K-Moto, like a Komodo dragon. I don't know. I always thought it was weird.
Yeah, dude, your brain is way too fucking big. All right, that's
Yeah.
gonna have to
Thank
get
you.
squashed. That's gonna have to get squashed here pretty soon, dude.
That's why I go the ego death route once every while.
Yeah, see, that's a I and like I've read more into ego death and stuff like that, but like I don't know, man. I've had like fucking really profound experiences, but I haven't had like a break. Like I haven't like zooped off into fucking outer space like on the roller coaster or whatever. I've never done that.
Dude, I
So
mean, it
I don't
sounds
know.
to
I don't
me
know
like
exactly what it feels like there.
you got there yourself.
Not quite though. I was
Like what
still
you're talking
here.
about, there's people who would say that was a straight up Kundalini experience.
And yeah, and I was gonna bring that up to you as well. So I remember, like I was hanging out with like there was a here on the West Coast, like in Vancouver, wherever there's a little fascist group, and I was hanging out with those guys, and there's like a handful of like like the pagan
Yeah.
larpers or whatever the fuck you want to call them. Those are the dudes that I found to be the most like down to earth, like understanding about this kind of stuff, right? And
Well,
he
'cause,
actually,
yeah, if you're on
what's
some
that?
wacky spiritual trip, absolutely. The Christians aren't gonna
Yeah,
understand.
no, the leader, the organizer for the group was like, oh no, man, that sounds satanic. And I was like, you're such a faggot, dude. I'm like, whatever, man. I'm like, I'm not gonna fucking sit here and argue with you about this shit. But oh wait, can I say that? Is this gonna get
It's all
fucking
good. I don't give a shit.
okay?
Yeah.
You should have said that before.
Channel's gonna get nuked soon anyway.
Yeah. No, make another one. Make another one,
I
man.
will. I will. I'm ready.
But yeah, and that's what one of the guys there, like one of the pagan dudes, he was saying is like, yeah, man, like that sounds like a Kundalini awakening. And I read more into it, and what they actually say too is if you have a forced Kundalini, like if the Kundalini arises within you when you're not prepared,
Yeah.
it can cause so much trauma.
You'll literally go insane and be useless.
And dude, and after that, dude, literally after that, man, my life got fucked up. And like a year ago, I got like an autoimmune disorder now. You know what I mean?
That's weird.
Through like stress and shit. And
Yeah.
it's pretty crazy, man. Like, that's all fucking, it's all hearsay. Like it might not be true, but it's when you experience what I experienced and someone says that to you and you kind of put things together, you kind of go, fuck that. That could have played a part for sure. And like causing a lot of like my mental and like physical issues that I had later in life. Right.
Maybe. I don't know. Like I spent like 2 years straight up eating like Chinese research chemicals. I was just tripping balls for 2 fucking years. And I feel like it kind of gave me the same type of thing. Like I have a hard time like relating to people.
Chinese research chemical, man.
Oh hell yeah, dude. That's where I found out about Bitcoin initially.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I have a hard time relating to people on any like fucking practical level. I don't want to have small talk. I want to talk about the fucking energy beings and shit. It's
Yeah,
like,
exactly,
that's what happens
man.
if you can't handle it.
That's why I reached out to you guys, because I was like, I literally have never had the opportunity to speak to fucking anybody that didn't want money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That had like their own genuine opinions about what I've experienced and stuff, and we're able to like keep up with the, I don't know what you want to call it, like the knowledge of the things, like just like how you mentioned, like Kundalini. Like, who the fuck knows about that?
Yeah.
Not many people, man.
That is the thing. It's like we have so little culture that's being maintained. It's like someone's got to keep the secrets, the lore. You know, who's
Nazi esoterics
anymore? Nobody.
Nazi esoterics. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, well, I've dealt with those guys. They're pretty intense about what they do.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you want to hear anything else, or I got a couple more probably. I got one more that's like pretty fucking intense actually.
Hit me with that one, and we'll call it a wrap after that.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. So about a year ago, that's when I got really sick, and I think that's kind of why I had the experience that I had, to be honest, because I was in such a negative place in my life. And so I was getting back into meditation to help with my symptoms, and I go smoke a little bit of extract, go lay in my bed, and I'm doing my meditation, and I get to a point where my light's on, but I'm seeing fractals, like I'm seeing like triangles and squares, but they're like, like they're like rainbow colored almost. And I was like, I couldn't push past it. So like, well, fuck this. I'm going to turn my light off and see what happens. So I turn it off. I'm laying there. I can still see the fractals or whatever. But now I can see this, like, it was like this swirling vortex almost. It wasn't like it was an actual vortex, but it was like between me and the wall, there was something disturbing, like the air, and it was swirling and then coming back and then swirling again.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it and I was like, what the fuck? And out of nowhere, here come these two orbs of light, and they go, woof, woof, woof. And it's these like full-bodied energy beings, and those are the ones that I mentioned that kind of looked reptilian, like I couldn't really tell.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like laying there, I'm like, okay, holy fuck. And then I look over, and there's this I could see from like the midsection up. And from the midsection down, you couldn't see anything, but from the midsection up, it was like pitch black. Like it was blacker than the blackness of my room. And it was like, it fucking looked almost like Cthulhu in a sense. Like it had these huge, long tentacles flowing off the sides of its head. And it was like, when I saw it, it literally felt like something took a line and drew it all the way down the center of my body. And it was like sucking my fucking soul into this thing. And I was like, okay, this is enough of this. So I rolled over and I turned on my light, but I can still see the fractals, and I can still see the like the swirling kind of vortex, right? But there's nothing else there after that.
So you're getting bad vibes from this guy, right?
Yeah, 100%. That was really fucking bad vibes, man. But like, those reptilians, they weren't with that thing though.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that thing was totally different than.
Is this like
than everything
shadow
else.
people type thing? Do you think, or these
man,
are the types of entities that are recalled during like sleep paralysis and these types of things?
I've had experiences like that too, but no, not quite the same, man. I've never seen anything like that in sleep paralysis.
Yeah, that's fucking intense. That's the problem with fucking flying through dimensions, is you don't know where you're gonna end up.
Yeah, for sure.
Pretty heavy stuff. So I think that about does it for these fucking tales of the acid, right? I don't know. So I appreciate you joining me, Eric. It's been real.
Yeah, man. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate you fucking having someone to kind of get a theory on these kind of things too, because it's pretty weird.
Glad to do it.